Ki amayla madrega rishayna eitzel nevroim hi chochmah. We're going to speak about how our mind works, and we're going to speak about how God's, so to speak, mind works. And we're going to review an idea that the Baal HaTanya spoke about earlier, is how we take input, creative input, psychic, soul input, and how we feed it through our soul, and how it goes through our soul into our thoughts, and how the letters of our thought come into words, and how the words will translate into action. We're going to speak about the pathway of that journey. So, if you ever wanted to go to a psychology course, as long as they're authentic with this, then you know you're in a authentic place. Because the Baal HaTanya is explaining the real network of how thought and how thinking and how the soul computes. So he's going to describe that now. The first part of how creation functions is a place called Chochmah. Chochmah is this very open, totally gushing, flowing, non-specific, energetic place. And the world of Chochmah, like the Baal HaTanya mentions earlier, is the words koach ma. The koach, the ability to say mazeh, which means Chochmah is a very open, almost, I don't want to say playful. I know sometimes some of the New Age Chevra talk that way. Like playful, childlike, but it's a very mature place. I don't want people to get the wrong idea with playful. But this very open, tamimis is the right way to say it. This open place where there's just this download. And that's why it's koach ma. It's the ability, which means there's something that's shaykh to me. But ma is something that's above me. When you have to say ma, like, how do you get to Niagara Falls? You're implying that there's something beyond you. Ma means what? Like, I don't know something. So Chochmah is both beyond you. There's two halves of Chochmah. There's the half of Chochmah called the ma part, which is the beyond you, and there's the koach part, which is the part that's now interfacing with you. So that's the highest part of your soul, is the Chochmah. That's the highest part of all the created world, is Chochmah, from the way that we see the created world. And that's why it's called Reishis. Chochmah is called Reishis Chochmah. Because Chochmah is the beginning. We'll see when it comes to Hashem is way beyond Chochmah. But from our perspective, Chochmah is the beginning. So the creative process really begins, when we talk about someone being a Talmud Chacham, really the idea is that he should be open to this download of ideas. Chochmah is like being this gushing flow of ideas that has not yet come into any specific idea. It's just the openness to all possibility. It's a very creative space, a very pure creative space. It's tremendous potential. It's like in a think tank or something, but before people are starting to dissect the ideas. It's not even the brainstorming that you're putting stuff on. It's the ability to brainstorm is Chochmah. Understand? Brainstorming is already taking it into Binah. You're like giving it defined limitation. It's the ability to allow all flow to come into you. That's Chochmah. That's called Reishis. Ki be'emesi Reishis ha'makor kol achiz shebenivroim. It's the energy. It's the flow and the life force of all of creation. Ki me'achochmah nimshacha is Binah v'das. And then from the Chochmah comes the Binah v'das. So Chochmah means all the flow, all the potential. Binah then takes that potential and starts to delineate and to divide it up. So if you wake up in the morning and you're lying in your bed, could you do anything at that point? You could run for president if you so desire. You could go to Shachris. You could go buy a lottery ticket. You can go for a run. You can go to the zoo, get a haircut, you can eat an apple. You can do anything, right? So while you're lying in bed, the ability to do anything is called Chochmah. That's the power of Chochmah, is that there's all potential. The problem is, if you just stay in Chochmah, you actually don't do anything. You just stay in bed all day. So the world of Chochmah is that you have all this potential, but only when you come into Binah, does Binah start to take it into something. Binah says, okay, so let's do this. Now the problem of Binah for Chochmah people is they feel it's so limiting, because they're starting to limit all this possibility. The only truth of the matter is that until you come into Binah, you don't have anything. By the way, I have to point this out because it's sad. Sometimes people in the dating process, both men and women, so they prefer to stay in the world of Chochmah. There's so many options, there's so much potential. Once I choose somebody, then that's it. So people can go a very long time, sadly, without choosing anybody, because they're just in Chochmah, all the potential of all of these ideas. And they're scared because once you choose one, but you haven't chosen anything, so now you have nothing. You hear the danger? Staying in Chochmah without going into Binah is that Chochmah can be very exciting because it's just all the potential, but you don't have anything tangible. Chochmah is like, I'm going to apply for a job. I could do anything. And then you find guys later, and they're 35 years old, and they're still, what happened with that job? I'm looking. Maybe some Binah, bro. Maybe a little bit of Binah. Let's try to put that, let's try to define, let's get that into something. So Chochmah is very, very powerful, but you have to be mature enough to bring that and to start to delineate it into the world of Binah. And Binah then starts to grow and to develop an idea. That's why classically the Sfarim point out that Chochmah is always categorized by a seed, and Binah is the process of unwinding the seed into something. Like a child comes from a seed, and then the seed goes to the mother, and the mother takes the seed and she unwinds the seed over the course of 9 months, and it becomes a child. So the seed has all this potential. It's so powerful. What the Binah does is I'm going to take this seed and we're going to now unwind it and it's going to become this child. So Chochmah is even before the seed goes somewhere. Chochmah is the ability to give seed. And you understand, at that point there's tremendous amount of seed. There's tremendous amount of potential. And each seed is how many thousand times smaller than a poppy seed? And then from that, the Binah unwinds that into a child. That's very distinct and specific. Chochmah would say in a world of just potential. Yes, Itai?
So in Melachim, it says that God bestowed upon Shlomo HaMelech vast amounts of Chochmah. And then afterwards, in the next chapter, the trial that he gives, it looks more like the verdict that he comes up with is an expression of how you describe Binah rather than Chochmah, because it's not that he's got all the potential of all the ways that he can rule it. He's made his decision, he made his ruling.
So you can only have Binah if you have Chochmah. So you had to have all the Chochmah first, and then Chochmah feeds into Binah. Chochmah is always the rashis. Chochmah is always the beginning. You need to have Chochmah. There's no Binah. You can't have a child if there's no seed. The Binah comes through the Chochmah. The Binah is just an unwinding of the Chochmah. So yes, he had all the Chochmah, and once you start unwinding all of his Chochmah, it's beyond. Shlomo Melech was the wisest of all men. And he had Chochmah that he made into Binah. So from Chochmah comes Binah and Das. Das means to take intellectual ideas and make them emotionally relevant, which means now I'm going to start bringing this into my midos and acting upon it. Umehem nimshachas kol hamidos shebenefesh hamaskelis, and then from Das comes all of my emotional feelings, ava v'chesed v'rachamim v'chayotze. V'kenira b'chush. Now it's interesting. He's going to bring a very straightforward mashal. Like we see this plainly if you just look at a child. Shehakoten ein boy das. Children have very little das. They have very immature and undeveloped thinking mechanism. So the Chochmah is not very developed, which means they're not drawing from great places of wisdom, and therefore the unwinding of how they should act based on that is not going to be so advanced, and the das therefore is not going to be very strong, and therefore the actions will be in a very low level, and that's why, says the Baal HaTanya, just look at kids. What do you see with kids? Hu b'koyes tamid v'achzari. Kids get upset over basically anything, and they can be mean to other kids, and they can throw tantrums. Never mind kids, they're perfect. But literally, when you look at other people's kids, you see that kids, if now, it's not nice to take your sister's lollipop, but like, oh my goodness, like the end of the world. The end of the world. Or if she got a purple lollipop and I got a yellow one. I'm saying it could even be that you like the yellow one better and it tastes better to you, but just because she got purple, I don't know, maybe 20-year-olds are doing the same thing. I don't know. I hope not. Hopefully your das has matured since then. But there's such a thing. If like you go to the store and they only had this many Magnum bar flavors, and you feel, oh, they got all the good flavors. I got like the weirdo, like pistachio flavor, which I happen to like. Oh, really? You're upset about that? But for a kid, it's like it's the end of the world. Why? Because if you have very low level of das, so then you get upset very, very easily. It's sad that this happens to older people as well. Getting upset about anything and everything. It's very sad. A big part about coming to Yeshiva is really helping people work on character traits. That people should really become mentions, because to get married without really working this stuff out, it starts to naturally ooze. You can't escape it. You get married, if you never worked on your anger problems, you never worked on your patience, you still got unresolved things, and now you were able to hide it through dating, it's going to ooze out. And it's not nice when it does. Because why would you do that to this very nice young lady? Why would this young lady do that to this very nice guy? Or why would they do that to each other? The idea being is now resolve things. And you're not going to be a perfect human being. But if you know you've got stuff, unresolved things, this is the time to focus on it. So ketanim, they get all upset about different things. Gam avasa hila devarim ketanim. Also their love, the things that they're into, they're stoked about literally nothing. Nothing. One candy. They'll do anything. One candy. And you offer them like wisdom, like, nah, not happening. But a candy, like 1 second of that sugar like hitting the palate. You guys remember being kids? Like the first time you had like a sour belt, like a sour key, like that, like, whoa! I was like a kid, like we used to go to movies and they had these things called sour patch, like where you'd buy a pack way too big and get a tummy ache, but like just, it was so intense, the sugar molecules, it was like you got high from it. It was so for a kid, like that's what you're into. You're very into it. And we hope that a person refines themselves and they're not running after that. The Rosh Yeshiva speaks all the time is, why will a kid pick up a lollipop from the floor and start eating it? In fact, if you ask many kids, they'll tell you a second-hand lollipop is even more geschmack than a first-hand lollipop. Because the second-hand lollipops have the initial coating of wax that comes on these lollipops generally like taken away because it's a secondhand lollipop. So you ask a kid, you're like, what is it? He finds a lollipop, he's like, Kamaitzi Shalom, it's a good day. Why would I give you a secondhand lollipop? And I wouldn't do that because I love you. Why would you be disgusted?
Because someone already ate it.
Yeah, because you have das. You have greater das. You're more aware of the whole system that goes into that. What's going on there? So as a person matures and becomes wiser, he's pulling from higher levels of Chochmah, which is going to go into Binah, which is going to go into das, which is going to then fuel his emotive responses and active living in everything in this world. Bless you. She'ein boi das lehoiv dvar ma'ru'uyim la'avosam. And kids are not so connected with loving the things that would be appropriate to love. I.e., things that are of greatness, of wisdom. She'ava kefi hadas. Important line. Your love will be according to how much you have das of something. So let's make this conversation a lot more mature. How much do you love learning Torah? It's a very simple answer. It's all how much das you have. If you don't love your learning yet, I'm sorry, you have very little das. How much do you love davening? If you don't love davening, you just want to have davened, then it means you have a little das. We have to work on your das. Which means we have to work on your Chochmah and your Binah and build the das. And if you still love like all you could think about, and if at any given moment somebody looks at what you're looking at in your phone, you're looking at belt buckles and cars, and that's like, I just got to get that new belt and that car. And because that shows what you're into, and especially the amount of time spent looking at that, means that you're very interested, and there's a love. Love means I'm drawn towards, I'm attracted to. So when it comes to Seder, a guy can't pull himself away from the Getchkala because his das is not developed enough that he doesn't love the learning, because he doesn't see how great it is yet. So that's one of the jobs, is to develop more das. Sha'ava kfi das. Okay, now the Baal HaTanya is going to take it even more into a complex system here, which we're going to have to go into more next week. And it goes like this. It starts with Chochmah in your soul. Chochmah is this flow of energy that's flowing into you. It comes into Binah. This is all in your neshama, in your soul. It comes now into das, and das starts to then recognize how I should relate to this in an emotional way. Should I move forward towards this thing? Should I back away from this thing? Once there's been, so to speak, a psak, din, from your neshama, how to relate to this situation. Afternoon Seder. Going for dinner with the guys tonight. After I've made it clear how my soul feels about this is very cool. Says the Rebbe, what happens? From the midas comes nimshachos ba tevis va'oisias hamachshava shehanefesh machashevis bedavar she'ohevis. From the soul comes the letters of thought, depending on what the soul is feeling and wanting. That then generates the thoughts of then, how am I going to get this? Actually strategizing a plan towards this thing or away from this thing. Which means, when are you really deciding things based on your thoughts? Your thoughts are so much later in the process. Your soul is really the underpinnings of what you're into. Thoughts, that's like way down the line. It's important to know that. That's why don't get caught up in your thoughts. The person has bad thoughts, that's not you. Your thoughts are not you. It's an indication that something is going wrong in the system. We have to fix that. But it's not you. You're way deeper than that. You're Chochmah Binah Das. And if we could just arouse the pure Chochmah inside of you to draw down good wisdom, bring it into Binah, Binah into Das Das then brings it into feelings. Those feelings will then indicate, do I want this thing? Do I not want this thing? That then becomes the letters of thought. Thought happens in letters. Oisiyas hamachshava. Because the thoughts, the soul of the part of you that thinks, is thinking about the things that it wants, or it's thinking about the things, how I'm going to actualize this good deed that I want to do. So start thinking about that thing. So just, I'll leave you with this. Everything starts with your soul. The way that your soul is interfacing with the world. Which is really, you have to go back and clean up your Chochmah Binah Das. Which is really your pre-psychic soul state. Which is the place that we want people to live from. Spend time with your soul. Your soul is very powerful. Get in touch with your neshama. The neshama knows right from wrong. After the soul has taken something through Chochmah, Binah, and Das, then it goes into the midos, the feelings of, is this something that I should be moving towards? Is this something that I should be expressing love towards? Or is this something that I should be recoiling from? Then the mind then will form tactic on how to then actualize that, making plans on how I'm going to actualize that plan. And that plan could be how I could show that person more love, or how I should write my wife a nicer love note, or how I should I want to open up an orphanage, or how I want to make sure to maybe spend less time with those bad influences. But what was fueling the thought? The fuel of the thought was the midos of your soul. That's the energy in the letters of your thoughts. The thoughts, the letters of your thought were only coming from the energy coming out of that midah of your soul. So really the letters of thought are being fueled by the energy of your soul power. Even though you don't see that in the letters of thought, but that's the packet of energy that's fueling it. Okay, we're going to have to go more into this. This is beginning the description of how we start to take the powers of the soul to actualize things in this world. We should be Zoycha Mamish, to be connected to Chochmah Binah Das on the side of Kedusha, and bring tremendous